Will any of these top running backs bust this year? How do I have the trio of Zeke, Barkley, and CMC ranked? And which Star Wars character do we bring up? What is going on, guys? It's Wade here with Tongues-Cat Gaming and Sports, and we are back with our sports podcast. So today, we'll be looking at the top 12 running backs. But before we jump to the video, we do have one big note to talk about, and that is going to be about the Washingtons. That's the football team, by the way. So Friday, while I was at work, I got an update saying Darius Geis, the starting running back for the Washingtons, has turned himself in on domestic violence charges, including one count of strangulation. It couldn't have been more than 15 minutes, and the Washingtons had not only cut him from the team, but they also did release a statement saying they won't put up with any of these actions, and they are trying to change the culture immediately. Of course, with everything going on, along with not only their team name, but the sexual report with the owner, and now Darius Geis with domestic violence charges. The Washingtons are doing whatever they can to try to have some positivity associated with themselves. So Ron Rivera is the head coach, and he will absolutely get them back on track, but it does seem like it'll be a little bit longer, a little bit bumpier route than he probably anticipated when he did sign up for the job. But that is actually the only major note. Baseball, there have been teams that have been being postponed because of the coronavirus, but MLB did release games that can be made up for those games. And then basketball is still going strong as of now of recording. I believe the Rockets only have either 3 or 4 more games left for the regular season, or tune-up games as they're kind of being called, and then we will actually be in the playoffs. And then football, right around the corner. So I would like to point out that for the next few weeks, we will be having videos on Friday and Sunday to try to get as much football content as I can out there before before your draft, of course, and before the actual football season begins with the Texans and Chiefs on September 10th. Thursday night. But with that said, let's hop into the video. So today we will kick it off with Aaron Jones, ranked number 12, and he is the running back for the Green Bay Packers. Aaron had a fantastic season last year. He had 19 total touchdowns with 16 coming on the ground. But for some reason, the Packers selected running back A.J. Dillon in the second round, and then also took quarterback Jordan Love in the first round. So the Packers finally gave Aaron the keys to the car, and he rewarded them big time, putting up 1,084 rushing yards with 16 touchdowns. And then through the air, he had 49 catches for 474 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now that Rodgers had a successful running game, he just needed another star wide receiver, which this class had plenty, and then maybe another lineman or 2 to protect him. Wrong. The Packers did the complete opposite by drafting Jordan Love, like I said, a quarterback with their first round pick, and then A.J. Dillon, a running back, in the second round. This is the main reason I have Jones at 12 and not higher up in my rankings, because the Packers have no idea what they are doing. Now, sure, maybe they don't want to pay Aaron Jones big money, so they drafted A.J. Dillon in the second round. But, drafting Jordan Love in the first round when the Packers needed a wide receiver or even an offensive lineman to protect Rodgers makes absolutely 0 sense. I do not trust this Packers offense. As much as I like Rodgers, I'm not drafting him as a quarterback. As much as I like Davante Adams, maybe if he falls to me, I might draft him because he's the only offense on the team. But if Davante Adams goes out with an injury, stay away from any Packers. Of course, if Aaron Rodgers gets an injury, stay away from any Packers. But I mean, really, this team, they got lucky going 13-3 last year, but I could absolutely see them just fall flat, go 8-8, 9-7. So be very, very wary of any Green Bay Packers. Will he produce, Aaron? Sure, he will. But Rodgers has only Devontae Adams out wide, and now they're adding another running back to the mix, and I don't like it one bit. I already felt like they way overachieved last year, like I said, so I am pumping the brakes big time on Aaron Jones. He's currently going at 206, which isn't terrible, but you will definitely need to hit on your other running back picks just in case he doesn't pan out like most people are wanting. If you are, the only way I could see myself drafting Aaron Jones is, for one, he falls to me in the 3rd round. And 2, I have Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, or Ezekiel Elliott. That's really the only way that I could see myself drafting Aaron Jones. He is definitely not going to be my number 1 running back for sure. I can guarantee you that. So now, moving on to player number 11, that is going to be Austin Ekeler, Los Angeles Chargers. Once again, Ekeler showed he can be relied upon, especially in the passing game. He signed a 4-year, $24.5 million contract extension, and Phillip Rivers is out, and some combination of Tyrod Taylor and Justin Herbert are in. So, when Melvin Gordon held out, Austin Ekeler finally got the chance to show what he can do as a running back 1, and he parlayed that 4-game start into a nice little extension. Now, he will never be the main man when it comes to the running side of the ball, but his pass-catching abilities are top-notch. Last year, he had 132 rushes for 557 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. Through the air, though, he had 92 catches for 993 yards and 8 touchdowns. So he is clearly a receiving back. But he was able to chip in 4.2 yards per carry, which isn't terrible either. The Chargers plan to rotate Justin Jackson and Josh Kelly in the backfield as well. However, Ekeler is too valuable not to have on the field. The biggest problem with Ekeler is that Phillip Rivers is no longer there, and Rivers is a check down monster. Now he's got Tyrod Taylor and Justin Herbert at quarterback. Will he see 108 targets in the air again? Probably not, but if he can get around 75 catches, I think he can still finish as a running back 1. And anything else he does on the ground is icing on the cake. He's currently going at 205 right now, and that isn't too bad of an ADP. I would, again, kind of like Aaron Jones, like to see him move closer to the 3rd round, because I don't want Austin Ekeler as my number 1 running back, of course. But having him as a number 2 would be pretty nice, especially if you get a running back who is more of the run, where he doesn't do much in the passing game. You can get Austin Ekeler to pick up on those extra targets that your main running back misses out on. But other than that, Austin Ekeler, it should be an interesting year just to see what he does with the new quarterback tandem in Los Angeles. Moving on to player number 10, that is going to be Josh Jacobs, Las Vegas Raiders. Jacobs had the best rookie season of all running backs last year. Now, will he get more involvement in the passing game? And then a shoulder injury caused him to miss 3 games last year. Josh Jacobs is probably the running back I am most intrigued in for this upcoming season. Last year, I wasn't a huge believer in the running game for the Raiders, so I avoided him in all drafts. And boy, that wasn't a smart move, as he put together a line of 242, 1,150 rushing yards, and 7 touchdowns. Through the air, he had 20 catches for 166 yards. So the only part of his game that needs more development is clearly as a receiver. And it's not that he can't catch either, as he had 27 targets. So he just needs more work to really push him into the top 5 running back territory. If you did grab Josh Jacobs, this was a guy where I said you could pair with Austin Ekeler to make up for the lack of catching that Josh Jacobs has and make up for the lack of running ability that Austin Ekeler has. Pass catching back Jalen Richard is still on the team, but he isn't going to affect much of Jacobs' workload at all. Also, if the Raiders can get more consistency in their game, that will help Jacobs, as in their wins, he averaged 24 touches, but in their losses, just 16. So that's 8 touches per game he missed out on last year. Jacobs going at pick 112 right now, and I am becoming more intrigued with him as we do get closer to the season. If I had a late first round pick, I would probably draft a wide receiver and then see if I could pair him up, as I think that'd be a nice steady core. Moving on to player number 9, that is going to be Derrick Henry, Tennessee Titans. And obviously, if anyone watched the playoffs last year or the past final games with the Tennessee Titans, you know everything there is about Derrick Henry. So he had the best season of his career, not even close. The Titans did lock up Ryan Tannehill for the next few seasons, and they even extended Henry to a 4-year, $50 million contract with $25 million guaranteed. So the Titans sure got lucky trading for Ryan Tannehill last year and deciding to replace Mariota during the season, as Derrick Henry was averaging 19 carries for 69 yards with Mariota at quarterback. So not terrible. But when they inserted Tannehill into the quarterback position, that jumped up to 21 carries, so just 2 more carries, but 125 yards. So nearly 60 more yards on the ground Derrick Henry was able to get with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. For the season, he had 303 carries for 1,540 yards and 16 touchdowns, which is just an insane amount of carries, as we really don't see that anymore. He doesn't factor in the pass game, as he has never had more than 25 targets, but when you run like Henry, it doesn't matter much. I am definitely bullish though on him this season, as I actually had him as my running back 10, but because he did get an extension, I decided to move him up just a bit, as he does have a little bit more protection with him. I don't think he's going to run for 1,500 yards again, but if he gets from 11 to 1,300 yards, he should get around 10 to 12 touchdowns, as I don't really see him getting into 16 touchdown echelon once again. Now, this is also assuming Tannehill can continue the success he had last year as a quarterback, and that the defense continues to keep them in their games again. His current ADP is 107, and if you did draft him, I would absolutely recommend trying to find a running back who catches a lot of passes to offset Henry's lack thereof. Once again, Austin Ekeler, maybe even Tariq Cohen, Phillip Lindsay, guys like that who what they do is a pass catching specialist. So I don't anticipate on having many shares of Derrick Henry, as I do play PPR, so that's points per reception. So I would much rather my running back contribute just a bit in the pass catching role, because if he does get shut down, then he won't be on the field to catch passes. If the Titans happen to have a bad game and they're losing 30-10, Derrick Henry isn't going to be in the game catching passes like a Christian McCaffrey would or a Saquon Barkley would. He's going to be on the sideline because that's just not his game. Doesn't mean he can't catch passes. That's just not what he does. So probably won't be having much of Derrick Henry. But if you do believe in the Titans breakout, go right ahead. But you just have to believe in it, and I don't. Moving on to player number 8, that is going to be Joe Mixon, the running back for the Cincinnati Bengals. It was a tale of two halves for Mr. Joe Mixon. He now has a new rookie quarterback sensation, Joe Burrow, and there are whispers of a holdout as he does enter his final season of his rookie deal. So Mixon had a rough go of things the first 8 games of the season, as he averaged just over 50 yards a game. However, the second half, things changed drastically, as he averaged 120 total yards and scored all 5 of his touchdowns the rest of the season. So he finished with 278 carries for 1,137 yards and 5 touchdowns. Through the air, he had 35 catches for 287 yards. So not much is holding Mixon back from continuing the second half success he had into the new season. He's mainly just surrounded by question marks. The big one being, how will Joe Burrow succeed his rookie year? If he does what most people believe, including myself, Mixon will be fighting to be a top 5 running back. The other thing holding Mixon back is a holdout. Now, the only thing he said is he is prepared for one. Mixon will make just over $1 million this year, and he's been one of the best running backs in the NFL, so he is clearly underpaid, and you can't argue that. If the Bengals were smart, They would take the risk and extend him mainly because Joe is on his rookie deal, so they have a 5-year window to take advantage of that. Mixon is currently going at 110, and I actually think this is a value, especially if he falls into the early or mid-second round. I would jump all over that, and so should you. Moving on to player number 7. That is going to be Kenyan Drake, running back for the Arizona Cardinals. He was a role player on the Dolphins. He came over last year in a mid-season trade, and this season he will play on the transition tag and will become a free agent next year. Drake was a 3rd-round pick out of Alabama by the Dolphins back in 2016. He was a role player with the team, and he excelled at it, but he never really got the opportunity to start. Last year, after 6 games, the Dolphins traded him to Arizona, and he took off and didn't look back. In the 8 games he started with the Cardinals, he produced a line of 123 rushes, 643 yards, and 8 touchdowns on the ground. Through the air, he had 28 catches for 171 yards. His rushing efficiency surprised me a little, as I always viewed him as more of a pass-catching running back, but his explosive play style and having Kyler Murray at quarterback was able to help create some lanes, and I do expect that to continue into the season. With the trade for Hopkins, this should even make those running lanes even wider, as the Cardinals' offense should be high-flying. Really, the only thing blocking his path to success would be his O-line, literally blocking his path. Or, injury to Kyler Murray, but of course, you can say that with any team. Other than that, I really don't see much risk here, and with his current ADP of 110, I'm really zoning in on him. Don't be afraid to grab this guy with an earlier pick if you do believe in the breakout, as the Cardinals seem to be one of the most hyped teams going into the year, just like the Browns a few years back with Baker Mayfield. Although I actually do anticipate the Cardinals, at least fantasy-wise, to be more successful. I don't know how well that's going to transition into real-life success, at least this year. But fantasy-wise, I do see the Cardinals being an absolutely fun team to watch. And you should definitely try to get yourself a piece of that Arizona Cardinals offense. I know I am. Either getting Kenyan Drake, Kyler Murray, Christian Kirk even, in the later rounds, grabbing Christian Kirk would be a really smart decision. DeAndre Hopkins. So I am very interested to see just what this Arizona Cardinals offense can do. Moving on to player number 6. That is going to be Clyde EdwardsHelaire, Kansas City Chiefs running back. So he was a first-round selection in this year's draft. Damian Williams has opted out for the year, and it is now full speed ahead for Mr. Clyde EdwardsHelaire. So if you don't know, Clyde was a part of the historical offense led by Joe Burrow and the LSU Tigers. He was a man among boys out there, and of course the Chiefs got even richer by getting one of the most talented college backs. And just like that, Clyde's path to stardom in the NFL as here. So before the news broke, I had Clyde EdwardsHelaire ranked at running back 16, which is right in the middle of a running back 2, as I did think because he wasn't going to be the starter from day one, that was going to impact his rankings just a bit. But now that he is absolutely the guy, I moved him up boards and moved up my rankings just like everyone else did. So his main competition, Damian Williams, has opted out to sit the year, and this inserts Clyde at the top of the depth chart. Even Patrick Mahomes asked Andy Reid to draft him to the team, so I fully expect Clyde to take off. He's a great runner and great pass catcher, and is exactly what Mahomes needs to leave his mark on the NFL for the next 15 or so years. His current ADP has jumped him from 209 to 106, and I don't blame anyone for taking him at this spot. Now, I would still take Zeke, Barkley, and CMC over him, but starting with pick 4, you are really going to have to make a tough decision. Do you take Kamara? Do you take Michael Thomas? Or, do you take Dalvin Cook? Or do you roll with the unknown but huge upside of Clyde EdwardsHelaire? This is similar to Saquon Barkley a few years back, whenever Saquon was pretty much a first-round pick, even though he was a rookie. And Saquon absolutely answered back. Now, Saquon wasn't the number 1 running back that year, but he did finish as a running back 1. This offense is just so dangerous that spending early for him might just pan out, and I would be absolutely ecstatic if I could get him at the end of round 1. I don't know necessarily if I would take him over Alvin Kamara or Michael Thomas, but starting with Dalvin Cook and then anyone else after him, I would definitely have a tough time not taking him, as it just seems too good to be true. And moving on to player number 5, that is actually going to be Dalvin Cook, Minnesota Vikings. He is a holdout threat, so this ranking right here is assuming he doesn't hold out for the season. Once again, the injury bug bit him again, and they do have a new offensive coordinator, Gary Kubiak, who is the running back guru. Well, first off, everything changes if Dalvin Cook actually holds out into the season. But this ranking, like I said, is based off of him not doing that and playing the full year. Second, the injury bug has riddled Dalvin all 3 years he's been in the league, playing in 4, then 11, then 14 games last year. However, the talent is there, and he has been lights out when healthy. Last year, in just 14 games, he put up 250 carries for 1,135 yards and 13 touchdowns on the ground. Through the air, he had 53 catches for 519 receiving yards. So clearly, this guy can get it done in both facets of the game. Now with running back guru Gary Kubiak, and boy, I would do anything to have him back as the Texans head coach. Cook could easily contend for the rushing title this year. But the injury concern is real, and he wants to get paid like a top running back. The Vikings are pressed in the corner big time, as the backup Alexander Mattison did decent filling in as a rookie. If I were the Vikings, I would roll with Mattison, and if Cook plays, great. If not, oh well. You can't. He's too risky injury-wise to bet big on him. So I would definitely roll with the sophomore running back now in Alexander Mattison. Cook is being drafted right now at 106, and boy, that is a huge risk. The return is great, though, as we are dying for a 16-game season from Cook, or at least be healthy for fantasy playoffs. If Cook is healthy, and if Cook doesn't hold out, I could see myself drafting Dalvin Cook at 106. If you have your draft now, I would not take Dalvin Cook until we get clear-cut news of what is going on with that situation. But moving on to someone who is much more safer, that is going to be running back number 4, Alvin Kamara from the New Orleans Saints. He only scored 6 total touchdowns last year. He has never rushed for 1,000 yards, but he has 3 straight seasons catching exactly 81 passes. So Kamara disappointed just a tad last year, but that was mainly due to massive touchdown regression. In 2018, he scored 18 touchdowns. Obviously, he wasn't going to score 18 touchdowns again, but double digits on the Saints offense? Pencil that in, move on, and continue your day. But unfortunately, he got just unlucky, as the Saints mixed it up quite a bit in the red zone with Taysom Hill and Latavius getting quite a good amount of looks. I do expect that to change, though. Last year, he had 171 carries for 797 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground. Through the air, he had 81 catches, 533 yards, and 1 touchdown. Kamara might not ever get 200 carries like some of the top running backs around him do, but because of his elite receiving ability, he will always contend to be the number 1 running back as long as Sean Payton is still calling the plays. The Saints signed Emmanuel Sanders this offseason, drafted a center in the first round, and have Drew Brees back for at least 1 more year. And if that's not a recipe for success, then I don't know what is. Also, with literally every team in the NFC South getting better on the offensive side of the ball, you can expect him to have a bit more opportunities for carries and receiving yards all around. Kamara is going at 105, and having to choose between him and the other elite wide receivers around him is going to be tough, but Kamara is going to get the edge for me every time. Moving to player number 3, that is going to be Saquon Barkley, New York Giants. He did end up missing 3 games last year with a high ankle sprain. New offensive coordinator Jason Garrett is in the building, and Eli Manning is out. He's retired. It is sayonara for Mr. Eli Manning, and hello to Daniel Jones. So really, these next 2 guys are just a toss-up on who you prefer more, as there isn't much separating these guys. Saquon cooled off just a bit from his fantastic rookie season, but even though he missed 3 games, he still put up great numbers, creating a line of 213 carries, 1,003 yards, and 6 touchdowns. On the ground, he had 53 catches for 438 yards and 2 touchdowns. The biggest takeaway from his rookie season to this past season was his receiving targets, as it dipped from 121 in 2018 to 73 for the 2019 season. Hopefully, we can contribute this 50 target drop off to rookie quarterback Daniel Jones just trying to get settled into a new role and more focused on his first few progressions and not checking down to Barkley. I can't imagine Barkley not getting at least around 100 targets, as he is just too good as a receiver to not force him the ball sometimes. I also don't expect the Giants to be all that competitive this year again, so he should be able to get some garbage time points as well as a receiver too. His current ADP is 103, and this is exactly where I take him. I trust the other two guys just a tad more. So moving on to player number 2, that is going to be Ezekiel Elliott, Dallas Cowboys running back. He is finally free of Jason Garrett as his head coach, and Mike McCarthy has taken over. He did test positive for corona back in June, but he's free of symptoms and all that comes with it as of now, and is an Ewok. Are they related some way? Ewok and Ezekiel Elliott? I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you think. Is there a relation between these two? So, not much could be said here, as we all know what Ezekiel Elliott is. He's a great running back on a good offense that doesn't make the best character choices. His off-the-field issues aside, though, he has been durable, and although the Cowboys' offensive line isn't as good as it used to be, it still gets the job done for the most part. Last year, Zeke put up 301 carries, 1,357 yards, and 12 touchdowns on the ground, and he had 54 catches for 420 yards and 2 touchdowns receiving. Elliott finally got back to double-digit touchdowns, and fantasy players rejoiced all around. Now, another year in what should be a better offense, at least on paper, he's a great candidate to lead the league in rushing yards and touchdowns. Now, how will new head coach Mike McCarthy do is anyone's guess, as he did have 2 years off since being the Green Bay Packers head coach. Really, the biggest question mark is Dak Prescott. How will he play this year? He has to play on the franchise tag, and although he will be fine, what happens if the Cowboys start this year 2-4 or 1-5? Will they switch to Andy Dalton? If they do switch to Andy Dalton, how will that affect Ezekiel Elliott? So there will be a little bit of risk there. This would be a slim chance of happening, but with everything 2020 has thrown our way, I wouldn't be completely shocked if something like that happens. He is going at pick 103 right now, and some of this uncertainty may lead to some players taking someone else. If that happens, scoop him up and just pray that 2020 will have a smooth finish for the rest of the year. I will definitely take Ezekiel Elliott with the 2nd pick, or the 4th pick, or the 5th pick if he's still there, as I do like him just a bit more than the other guys, but not more than the number 1 player. It's obvious, Christian McCaffrey, running back for the Carolina Panthers. He signed a 4-year contract extension worth up to $16 million a year. New head coach Matt Rule is at the helm. Don't be dumb. Take him number 1. So I created a nice little jingle for y'all to remember that. I have been lucky enough to get CMC the past 2 years in fantasy football, and boy, it has been a great 2 years. And unfortunately, this will probably come to an end this year, but regardless, I'm still going to watch him because this guy is unreal. Only the 3rd running back in NFL history with 1,000 rushing and 1,000 receiving yards. You have to take him first overall. For the year, he had 287 carries, 1,387 yards, and 15 touchdowns. Through the year, he had 116 catches, 1,005 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And yes, he did get fed catches week 17 to get them, and nobody cares. He went 7 for 72 through the year, in case anyone was wondering. He is easily the most complete back and got paid because of it. The question marks heading into the season: new quarterback Teddy Bridgewater is at the helm, but he does have no problems targeting his running backs. The main contributor will be head coach Matt Rule and how he will transition coming from Baylor to Carolina. He has said he wants to avoid having CMC on the field for every snap, but when he's your best player by a wide margin, sometimes you're going to have to give a little. He played 1,039 snaps last year, which equates to about 64 a game over 16 weeks. So maybe he averages 50 snaps a game, But you can't tell me that after winning, you're going to sit him. And if you're down by 14 with a quarter left, that you're going to sit him. So very rarely in the NFL does anyone truly get blown out, and you can sit your starter for the rest of the game. CMC is going at pick 101, and if you are able to get him at pick 2 or later, count your blessings and don't look back. But that will be it for the running back rankings, top 12 running back rankings. Make sure you come back next week as we will begin with the wide receiver rankings. And Friday, that video will come out as we will look at the wide receivers ranked from 36 to 13. So we're looking at 2 tiers of wide receivers, wide receiver 3s and wide receiver 2s. 2 more days after our wide receiver rankings, we will look at the top 12 wide receivers and the top 12 tight ends. So please be aware of that, as I am going to be pumping out a bunch of football content this next month. And that should be super, super exciting. So make sure you comment below what you think, what you like, what you don't like, what you disagree with. Make sure you come back next week so you won't miss out on any other content. This has been Way with Tongueside Gaming and Sports. Make sure you smash that thumbs up button, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on the bell to get all my notifications. Don't forget to put God above all. I will see you next time.